The world of PPC is going through very interesting times. We've got a lot of head to head battles and debates about standard shopping versus performance max, and whether you should only do standard shopping, whether you should only do performance max, also known as PMax, or whether you should do a combination of both with different products or the same products, yada, yada, yada. And it's got people's heads spinning on what's the right thing to do. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll probably know that I'm going to start with saying it depends. Yeah, I know, super boring, but it is going to depend. And I just wanted to discuss a couple things that I think you should really keep in mind when you're looking at this content, when you're making those considerations for your business and your account. And obviously, behind all of this, you're going to want to consider your own business objectives, goals, and the data that you have available in order to make these decisions. That are going to be best for your company. So I think there's two major talking heads here. There is agencies and experts who are mostly leaning towards standard shopping right now and sort of promoting it as, PMax is terrible. Let's all just do standard shopping, cold traffic. That's where you're going to get it. PMax just goes after brand and remarketing to site visitors, and it's just getting all the easy wins. And there is some truth to that in a lot of cases. But with agencies, we have to obviously also remember that they are making content not always for the interest of just simply educating its audience. They obviously are also looking to get as many clicks as possible, thereby meaning controversial takes, right? Hot takes, as they like to say. So this can be saying things like, this is bad, this is good. That gets people clicking, that gets people watching. What's not sexy is to say it depends on your business and the data that you're seeing and what tests that you're running, yada, yada. There's got to be some dependencies, and you need to know the reasons as to why you might make one choice or another before you just take someone's post and run with it. So one thing obviously with agencies too, and this is not me throwing shade on agencies. Obviously I work with a lot of agencies and I respect a lot of agencies out there. But I just think that as business owners or as marketers, you guys should be aware of this when you're looking at the content. So there is obviously some bias with agencies to use standard shopping more than PMax. PMax was seen as sort of an existential threat to a lot of agencies. A lot of lower tier sort of not so great agencies last year when it really fully launched, because there wasn't as much that you could throw into the change history to make it look like you were doing a good job. Like you weren't constantly adding negative keywords anymore. You weren't maybe changing bids manually anymore. So for agencies that weren't really focused on strategy and growth, and they were just focused on showing you high click-through rates and lower CPCs, and so kind of focusing on the wrong things usually, and how many changes they made in the change history, they didn't like PMax because all of a sudden now how do they justify their management fees to you? PMax is usually a slow machine. It needs time and patience and a lot of data to do well, and in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases. So there is that bias to justify management fees when you hear people say, hey, let's go to standard shopping because there's more control. You can show off things that are going on. Now, that's not the only reason, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Also, just keep in mind with Google, they have that. This is the other talking head, right? With Google, they are obviously, this has been trending this direction for a while. They want you to lean into automation. Trust our sophisticated algorithms for bidding and targeting, so that we can figure out what's best and which audiences are going to convert, and we'll get you a lot of new customers or just customers in general. Just trust us and use our automation to get you there to whatever you need and want. All you need to give us is your goals, which you will communicate to us through settings and through any data that you might provide us, like customer lists. Now, those are the two talking heads, and you can see that they're diverging at this point, which is why I say I think it's really interesting times that we're living in right now. Now, I do want to mention at least some PMax tendencies and also weigh those against the making, if you want to make the full switch to standard shopping. So some tendencies of Performance Max. So one is going to be, it obviously, and this is probably the most talked about thing, it's going to focus on easy wins because there is only the option to bid based on conversions, right? There isn't a manual CPC. There isn't a maximize clicks. It is going after conversions. Therefore, it's going to, depending on your budget, how much you're spending and what audiences it has available, how popular your product is in the campaign, etc. Again, depending on a lot of things, but it's going to tend to focus a lot on branded and warm audiences, so branded searches and warm audiences. Why? It's cheaper clicks. Obviously, it's going to be higher click-through rates in most cases, and likely to lead to higher conversion rates. So if you were an algorithm and you were just told to get as many conversions as possible per day, who would you go after? Especially if you only had a little bit of spend relative to the average order values and everything else that's going on in the data that you have, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go off of that. There are ways to communicate to Performance Max that you would like it to go after only new customers, but even then, it can only see so much within its own ecosystem legally to recognize what a new customer is versus a returning one. So it can't see everything, but it's trying its best to accomplish your goal, either omnichannel or if you do feed only, pretty much just on shopping and maybe some YouTube, and now also maybe some search and display. So these are some considerations in terms of PMax tendencies, mostly focusing on easy wins, which tends to be branded and warm audiences. It is also going to be going after a wide range of terms in a lot of cases. So if you're not used to Performance Max and historically you've only gone after like long tail search terms and you've targeted those via search campaigns with keywords, exact match keywords, for example, and then you turn on Performance Max, you might be a bit shocked at all the quote unquote generic search terms you're now showing ads for, such as like one or two term search terms. One or two word search terms, those kind of things. Not always a bad thing. It just might be opening up the funnel a little bit more in your marketing initiatives, which again, it could be a good thing for your business. It might not be something your business can support. So that'll also be some dependencies on what you're seeing in terms of your results of switching or trying Performance Max. Now, another big thing about Performance Max in terms of its tendencies is going to be its tendency to over attribute conversion credit to itself. So obviously, again, talked about pretty often, but it is going to be in terms of if you have data on customer paths, you're going to see that Performance Max is going to not always be the first click in that customer path that leads to a conversion, right? So it's going to tend to over attribute conversions to itself. Again, it's conversion-based bidding. And if you put an ad out on Instagram and then Performance Max sees that person and recognizes that this person has a high intent, you can't really, if that person converts, you can't really trust the ROAS that Google Ads inside the interface is telling you. And PMax is going to tend to scoop up a lot of those conversions and take full credit for that. This is also true within Google Ads by itself. If you have an outbound YouTube campaign, you might have gotten a view or a couple of views from somebody, and then Performance Max later on gets a conversion. Well, Performance Max being closer to the path or the point of that actual conversion, and it being data-driven attribution that's in use, it's going to take most of the credit for that more than likely. So these are all just things to consider when you're making the move or the switch to Performance Max, or you're just thinking about weighing PMax versus standard shopping. Definitely keep in mind PMax tendencies. Now, with all of that said, some problems with Performance Max that people talk about quite often: the limitations on being able to add negative keywords outside of brand lists, whether that's your own brand or your competitor brands. Your lack of ability to target a specific audience outside of like the customer acquisition setting. So you can't just say, I only want to go after, this audience segment, this in-market audience, for example. We don't have that level of control. It's not infinitely scalable by itself, and I think this is really important. Now, there might be some exceptions, but at a certain point, it is not going to be able to scale its ability to find new audiences to go after. and get those people to convert at the same level that you're pushing your spend, your ad spend. So, obviously you need to be supporting any of your marketing efforts through multiple means. You shouldn't just be over relying on one channel unless you're really restricted in terms of budget and you just need to focus your budget on a channel that really does deliver value for the business. Well, then of course you need to do what you can. But generally, if you are looking to expand your business, well, you need to do more brand awareness and you need to be pushing more money towards things that lead to more conversions later. So first click type of path points. So is it infinitely scalable by itself? Probably not, but that's not really a difference with standard shopping. And with standard shopping, can you scale it infinitely by itself? Maybe, because it can go after, depending on what bidding strategy you're using, just mostly cold traffic. But even then, shopping as a channel is going to be converting people in a lot of cases that are ready to convert. How you warm up those people beforehand is still an important attribute to growing the business. So, you want to be hitting them on YouTube, display, maybe, right? Depends on your business, discovery ads, Facebook, meta ads, whatever you want to call it. There's other touch points that you want to utilize in the customer path and in marketing to that individual to get them to convert. If you're just over relying on shopping only, for example, and doing some branded search, you might find limitations in being able to scale that at a certain point. A couple other limitations or problems I should say with Performance Max. It's going to be your in-platform return on ad spend. So that's what I mentioned before, especially if you're doing other marketing. The ROAS that Performance Max is showing you is probably not a true ROAS. It's not going to be like a true blended ROAS or MER, because if you spent a bunch of money on Facebook promoting your ads over there and your content over there, and it didn't get a conversion on Facebook, but Performance Max is taking the credit later, it's more than likely like that return on ad spend is not directly just, oh, we got a click from Performance Max and it converted. Here's the ROAS. That's what Google's going to tell you. But truly, that's not really the case, right? You actually spend a little bit to warm that person up on Facebook and then they get converted through a Performance Max ad. It's not the same thing in terms of return on ad spend. So obviously keep that in mind. Your search term data that's available in Performance Max is another consideration. Obviously, right now, we are getting more access to search terms, being able to pull them out of the API via Google Ads scripts and otherwise, so that way we can see some search term data a little bit more user-friendly to look at outside of just in the platform. But there's still limitations. There's only so many metrics that we can utilize versus standard shopping. The date ranges that are available to analyze our data in Performance Max, obviously, in a lot of accounts still, we are stuck with 7 and 28 day date ranges. So you can imagine someone trying to analyze data or patterns over time or longer periods of time, you are quite limited in your ability to look at that data. So, now we're getting more access to changing date ranges depending on your account and being able to download data over time. And in some cases, businesses have to sort of schedule like, okay, every 28 days or every 7 days, download the search term data so we can track this over time. So it's one of the issues right now that we're having. Luckily, again, with the script, you can have a date range a little bit more custom and pull all the search terms that you want if you're familiar with utilizing scripts for that information. But even still, you're still kind of limited there in terms of what metrics you can see for search terms. So in terms, the last problem that I'll mention, obviously there's other issues we could talk about all day about Performance Max. Not that it's a bad campaign type by any mean, but the last one I'll mention is that there isn't any, and I've touched on this already, there isn't any non-conversion based bidding options, right? It's all max conversions, max conversion value, with a TCPA or with the target ROAS. There isn't any other options as of the making of this video. And I don't really see that changing just based on, Performance Max is a product by Google. It's automation heavy. I don't see it going to manual CPC anytime soon. Now, some advantages to mention on the other side of the coin with Performance Max. Now, you've obviously got omnichannel marketing that's happening, right? So it's an omnichannel approach, which means more learnings to make better predictions around conversions and which audiences are going to convert. It has more learning as an algorithm to make decisions around, in a nutshell. This can be advantageous. Whereas standard shopping is not going to have that omni-channel ability. That's not going to have that many learnings in that sense. Now, The other thing here is your bidding strategies that are available. You do have maximize conversions and maximize conversion value without having to set any hard targets on ROAS or CPA. So those are very aggressive bidding strategies that you don't have available in standard shopping. But of course, the most aggressive bidding strategy is manual CPC, which is available in standard shopping. So that is something to keep in mind. Customer acquisition goals, you can say new customers only. And again, there are some limitations there, but we do have customer acquisition goals and settings that we have available in Performance Max that we don't have in standard shopping, at least as of the making of this video. Audience signals, though, you can debate how useful these really are in the long term, but at least in the beginning or when you make updates to those audience signals, it is a light suggestion to Google as to kind of who you expect to convert and who it should maybe focus its attention on and get a head start for. And audience signals are not something that's available for standard shopping, so that is a consideration. URL expansion is another option that Performance Max has available to us if that's appropriate for your business and your goals. Developing product, it is a product that is in development right now with Google. Yeah, it's been a year plus, depending on if you got it in beta or not. But it's still learning. It's still new. It's still being dialed in. Google is still going to be optimizing and putting a lot of its focus and attention on making this campaign type better. Whether they can fulfill any promises to that and its ability to do better than other campaign types, we shall see. Google doesn't necessarily come right out and say that Performance Max is going to be the be-all, end-all of campaign types, though it may seem that way sometimes. But yeah, Performance Max is new. It's going to continue to develop. This is something to keep in mind if you want to kind of have some kind of potential competitive edge in terms of shopping ads in particular, or that omni-channel experience and marketing that we're talking about. Ease of management is the last one I'll mention today. For a lot of business owners that are doing this themselves, they've got a lot of other things to do in their life than just dig into their Google Ads data. And if they've got a YouTube campaign and outbound in remarketing, discovery, outbound remarketing, branded, non-branded search, they're testing DSAs, they're, yada, yada. They're doing all this stuff and query filtered standard shopping campaigns. Do you really expect the average small business owner to do that properly and have the time to keep that going and scale it? Probably not. Now, you could make a case that they should hire an agency, but honestly, not all business owners are ready for that or have the budget available for that. Truth is, they just might not be at the point for their business where they're comfortable with that, which is totally fair. And in that sense, Performance Max can be a very nice option for them because they can do omni-channel marketing inside of Google Ads without having to launch separate campaigns and fully understand how those things work. And now, will it be optimal and ideal? Probably not, but that person does not live in the world of perfect and ideal. They just need to get the job done. They need to do the best they can with what they have available. Performance Max is a great option for them and for others that are in similar circumstances. Now, the last thing I'll mention to kind of wrap this up is an interesting time in the PPC world because we do have these diverging paths of Google saying, hey, lean on automation and just trust us with Performance Max. We'll do everything kind of for you. Just give us some good information. And then agencies are saying, hey, let's control things more, get more data, which again, very admirable and very truthful. Let's go standard shopping. But in some cases with bad agencies, that also means, you're just doing that because you want to show off how many changes that you've made and how many bids that we've changed and, just in how many negatives that we've added and things like that. And you're not really doing it for the right reasons. So I will just say that two things can be true, right? Standard shopping can be a great option for some. PMax can be a great option for some. Doing both at the same time for the same products or different products can be appropriate. It depends on where you are at. And I think all of the things I've talked about today in this video can help you in making those decisions and seeing, based on what your needs are, do you need all of that control? Do you need all that data? Are you happy with, going one way or another based on the pros and cons that have been discussed? Those are things you need to think about, and those are things you need to consider. I don't think that there is a one way to do it, whether it's standard shopping or Performance Max. I think there are there are a lot of different ways actually of looking at this. Brands can find success with both Performance Max and or standard shopping. Now, if you want to expand, this is really important. If you want to expand your business, you'll still need to do more than shopping. More than likely, you're going to have to do some other marketing. TikTok, YouTube, or not YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You're probably going to have to do some other marketing if you truly want to expand. You can't just lean on standard shopping campaigns to do that for you. More than likely, and you're going to have to inevitably spend more on touch points in the customer path that were the first click touch points that led to conversions more often than not, which guess what? You're going to need a tool that can support those decisions and can support that level of analysis. So you need customer path reports, and leaning onto the attribution reports that are available inside the Google Ads interface is going to be pretty limited. Google can only see what Google can legally see. So you can't just use that to make all of your decisions. You're going to need a tool that does it for you as accurately as possible. Now, if you want cold traffic, and a lot of people are just really focused on this, and again, I don't blame them. We want cold traffic. We want more cold audiences that we're marketing to because that is scalable. Completely agree. But can your business support that increase in cold traffic? I think there needs to be a point thrown out there about that. A lot of businesses talk a big game about we want new customers. We don't just want to be marketing to all these warm audiences, but then you bring them new cold audiences and their business is not ready for that. Now, in some cases, businesses are totally open to that. Like, we're not really ready, but we're the type of business that just we like, working under pressure, and we've got the inventory to support it. And yeah, maybe our customer support team is not ready to handle this necessarily, but we'll figure it out. Okay, cool. But in a lot of cases, businesses are not truly ready for that increase in demand for their products. So I do just at least want to say, make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into if you work with an agency or a marketer or a consultant that shows you how to get there, or that can kind of position you in a good way to get you there to get more cold audiences. Make sure your business is ready for that. And what do I really mean is, do you have the tools to support those things in terms of monitoring customer paths? You can continue to scale that beyond initial success. Are your conversion rates and average order values relative to your cost per clicks in a good place to support that, right? If we're sending a bunch of new people to the site, but the site looks like garbage, it's probably going to be a big waste to spend, no matter whether you're using Performance Max or standard shopping or some other hack. It's not going to matter because people just aren't buying your product. You're getting them into the store, but they're not buying anything because the salespeople are terrible, because the shop looks awful and gross. Well, yeah, people aren't going to buy from you no matter what special campaign type that you're using or whatever new tool Google rolls out that you're utilizing. It's not going to matter. Do you have good, solid retention rate? If this is applicable for your business, is retention rate solid and maybe improving over long periods of time? Customer lifetime value, is that something that you can both track and monitor, as well as lean on in terms of your optimization efforts? These are important considerations. Can your inventory support more cold traffic to the site? Are you constantly out of stock for products? Then maybe you need to fix an issue with your inventory management before you crank up the gas on sending more cold traffic to your site. I already mentioned this, but customer support, is your customer support team ready for the influx of people that aren't really aware of what your product offers or what your features are? And this also goes to conversion rate optimization. Are you giving enough information about what these products are, what their benefits and features are, so that people don't have to reach out to your staff to try to figure out if this is a good fit for them and their needs? Is your pricing strategy aligned with what you're seeing in the market, with what's most appropriate within your market? If your prices are too steep, if your shipping takes too long, when you give them shipping estimates, if those are much longer than other businesses, especially if you're a retailer that sells a brand of products or a type of product that many other competitors in the same Google ad auctions or just in the marketplace in general offer. If your shipping takes too long, if it costs too much in terms of shipping, if your products cost too much, if you're not offering bundle deals, if you're never offering promotions and everybody else is, these are all things that you have to weigh into your pricing strategy and see, if you are sending and paying for a bunch of new traffic to come to your site, does your pricing strategy support that? It's a really important consideration. And then the last thing I'll mention is, do you have enough outbound marketing assets to really support pushing and scaling and expanding your business? Because if you start and you don't have a bunch to work with, and you get kind of maybe lazy, or you just kind of are forgetful and you don't constantly update those outbound marketing assets, you could really run into stagnancy in your marketing, and then efficiency really falls out. So those are all some major considerations as you're thinking about sending more cold traffic to your site. And hopefully this video was helpful in making and allowing you to at least consider your options, consider what PMax has to offer versus standard shopping, and whether making a switch one way or the other or keeping doing what you're doing makes a lot of sense for you. Hopefully, again, that was really helpful for you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.